I am Makarand Velankar, associated with Information Technology Department of Cummins College of Engineering. I welcome all here on behalf of Maharshi Karvesi Shishyan Sanstha for the podcast. Join us to trace the topic of Bhartiya roots of modern science, specifically for Gen Z. Long before Google or ChatGPT, we are thinking about the era where Gurukul system with no Wi-Fi, mobiles, or e-books. And our guest today is Dr. Nilesh Oak, a well-known astronomer who has spent many years in the research related to Mahabharata and Ramayana, specific to the timelines related to it. Welcome, sir.
Namaskar. Glad to be here.
Yeah. So we'll start our discussion related to hobbies. I used to have a hobby of music, which was basically percolated through my parents, specifically by my father. And he was very fond of Hindi film music. And probably that has motivated me to work in music further. Considering your background, which is a chemical engineer, astronomer is kind of a typically not a, I would say, a specific phenomena what we can think of for chemical engineer. So is it a passion, profession, or something else? And how you came to this astronomy?
Okay. The simple answer would be an accidental astronomer, you can say. Main thing was I was growing up, most of us are, but not all, a voracious reader. I literally read anything that I came across. And then natural outcome of that is you get to know so many fields. Then fast forward, my mother taught me Bhagavad Gita. So then therefore naturally the Mahabharata, then Ramayana. Not because Bhagavad Gita, in the Indian context, Ramayana, Mahabharata do come in the picture.
Right.
But then I had a fascination because I can say I'm a philosopher of science and student of science. So anytime something new came in science, it used to fascinate me. But then people in an Indian context would say, "Arey, this is all there in Ramayana, this is all there in Mahabharata, this is all there in our text." So I had a curiosity to find out where it is and in the what context. And that led me to all these studies.
Oh, nice. We'll try to start with the common questions in Gen Z's mind, or probably common people's mind in a way. Why is it important to visit, I would say, Indian history or Indian knowledge system in the context today?
Okay. If you look at Indian history, just a simple answer, answers can be long. One is that not just Indian history, if somebody does not know his or her history, the context, the culture, the civilization, the dharma, whatever the context, the country they belong to, it is like you are a leaf. That leaf doesn't know which tree it comes
Without
from.
the roots kind of a thing.
Without the roots kind of thing.
Okay.
From the Indian knowledge system, why it is important? Because with modern science and a technology, we have made amazing progress. Having said that, now that we are reaching the limits in certain way, limits in the sense that AI is like a new child on the block.
Okay.
And it's no longer a child, actually is doing some amazing things. Or if you look at progress of physics and leading to quantum mechanics and now finding the barriers.
Right.
And how do you go beyond that? Or the fact that science started with the truth, the search for the truth, but now science also turned, science is used as an agenda driven thing for whatever you want to make out of in a commercial sense. So how do we find the balance? I think Indian knowledge system, I'm convinced that Indian knowledge system has a lot to offer. Frankly, it is being acknowledged outside. If there is a place where it is not truly appreciated or people think this must be some hodgepodge way of like just giving boost to saying, "Arey, go and read Ramayana, Mahabharata or Rigveda," it's not so. People, very serious people in other countries are actually coming back to this studying. Doesn't matter which business, even in a commercial sense, even in a business schools. And I have taught frameworks made out of, say, a place like Bhagavad Gita or a Darshana Shastra in business schools in America, in corporate training. And people appreciate it.
That's great. I think Indian people itself within India are not probably appreciating the history of our own history, I would say, in a way. So, another way to look at the entire thing is related to, we do have different disciplines like science, technology, philosophy, or maybe mythology and whatever we refer to. Do you think this as a separate compartments, or it's kind of you can say a common pursuit of the knowledge or something like that?
In an Indian context, they were never separate compartments.
Okay.
Right now, it may feel like this. Suppose we are sitting in a smart place here, right? And you say, okay, what does the movie making has to do with astronomy? Surprise, surprise. That's what you'll find. Or we find, what does navigation has to do with astronomy? Agriculture has to do with astronomy. Medicine has to do with astronomy. But in the Indian context, just because I'm into astronomy, I'm just using astronomy. But you can turn this around and say medicine.
Okay.
And then you will find medicine is connecting with everything, right from the dance to whatnot, you know. So in the Indian context, you will find that doesn't matter where you begin, you will end up going multidisciplinary. In a Western context, initially it was all one. They used to teach us a philosophy. They used to call science, philosophy together. From there, with the European Renaissance, like 1637 and after, they split it into multiple brackets, multiple branches, like specialization. But they're also now realizing that they have to bring it back as a multidisciplinary. So that's where even the Indian thought can add to it. For example, if you say like a Charaka Samhita, which is an Ayurveda text, but it is so amazing that Charaka Samhita discusses how to communicate. Charaka Samhita discusses how to do a proper debate.
Oh,
it's just so amazing. So Charaka Samhita has sophisticated Nyaya Darshan. Charaka Samhita has astronomy. And even the language, linguistics, how to properly read and diagnose. So the multidisciplinary is coming back. And I think there also the IKS can actually play a role.
Oh.
And not just as a word. Right now, people think IKS as a word and nobody's sure what to do with it. Actually, if you go methodically, there is already a path is given in our texts.
Okay. So about the modern science, typically we can think of 5W and H kind of a framework, which typically we use for identifying the problem and validating that. So what is modern science, why, where it started, and who for it was, and how it has basically progressed over years? So probably would like to have something related.
So let's look at modern science, what we will call. It started about 500 years in Western Europe. Okay. Now there it started as a kind of a fight between religion and non-religion, you know, the civic sort of, you call secular sort of thing. It started that way because the religions there are, of course, Christianity mainstream and extremely dogmatic. I mean, you know the story of Galileo and Copernicus, but let's say it started with Copernicus. I mean, that's where we can take as a starting point. And all Copernicus said is, instead of Earth being at the center, Sun is at the center. And he was so damn scared of saying this that he wrote a book and he said, when I die, now you publish it. That's the kind of separation that was there. It was never there in India. That's not to say there is no dogmatism in India. There is a lot of it. Right now is a huge dogmatism. I see that. But see, any Sanskriti, there will be a Prakruti and a Vikruti. And from time to time, we have to do the cleaning operation to get rid of that Vikruti or minimize it. Now it has happened there. So it started about 500 years ago. And the search was like, they used to put it this way, and they meant it, by the way, because they were very religious people, like likes of Kepler and Newton and Copernicus. We are trying to understand the mind of God. That was the language.
Okay.
And they were not doing this as a pep talk, but still the church did not like it. So that's why that separation that you see there. So what is the method? So you see a method there as a separate. For example, for a long time they were doing the science right way, but they were not philosophizing the right way. For example, they used to think until like 19th century, late 19th century, that it is inductive and experimental. And they used to contrast that with the Greek, who were basically conjectural, like first you guess something and then you like meditate on it.
Okay.
You know, like think, could this be correct? So that is not science. What Greeks were doing is not what the actual science is. And what the modern scientists were also thinking until now. There are many who actually think still like that, inductive and experimental. That is also not the case. Actually, the science is basically conjectural and experimental. You guess a solution and then you go and see if it is true. Now, surprise, surprise. Nyaya Darshana, sage Gautama, we don't know how many thousands of years ago, but definitely we know more than 14,000 because Ramayana also talks of this science, Nyaya Darshana. He is saying exactly the same thing that what modern science finally has agreed to. Modern science says logic of scientific method is a triangulation of explanation, prediction, testing in the context of theory, in the context of background knowledge, basically 5 elements, not the W's, but 5 elements. And Sage Gautama says, Pancha Avayava, 5 elements. And then you say, what are those? Then he will say, Pratijna, Hetu, Udaharana, exactly these 5 things. So you start with a problem. To solve it, you propose a theory. Once you propose a theory, you know exactly what evidence to look for. Like Einstein said, it is the theory that decides what can be observed. If theory doesn't allow you, doesn't give you permission, you are not allowed to observe it, at least for that. That's exactly what Gautama is saying. Isn't that interesting?
Interesting. We have never thought of that. This has got roots over there. And we have got lot many things which are coming up today has probably got the basic knowledge or roots over there. So what Bharat has to do with it, or India has to do with it?
Because if you look at the connections, now this is not to take away credit from the European Renaissance. I mean, they really were brave individuals. They fought against the religious dogmatism. And they were very sincere people. They were religious people. Like Kepler was a very religious person. But still, they had to face it. Like Giordano Bruno, he was also extremely religious person. But just for saying that all the stars at night that you are seeing are just like suns, they are suns, but they are far away. He was burnt on a stake.
Oh.
Okay. Now, if you come in the Indian context, you see that never happened. I mean, people have to actually go find an example. If they find it, great. That exception proves the rule. But even you won't find that. There were disagreements, and we had a way of handling it. We'll also talk about that. But let's see the roots of the Indian philosophy or Indian way of doing things going to there. We'll look at both science and technology. They are two different things, but technology does grow with the science. So, for example, even the Copernicus saying sun at the center. He has a motivation from the Greece, but that was only emotional motivation. But a theoretical motivation actually came from India. The Indian astronomy going to Arabs, and from there going to Spain, Cordoba, which is a Islamic center of excellence. That's the one bright spot in Islam. The other one being at the Iraq, the house of wisdom. Other than that, too, basically they were copy pasting. I mean, and they know that, and they have no problem with it. But from Spain, it went to Copernicus. So actually, there is a story, and you can read that. See, Professor C.K. Raju tells it, but many others. How do you know somebody is copying? So what happened when text went from India to Arab? When Arabs were translating, there was a mistake, and that mistake gets translated into Latin and goes to Copernicus, and Copernicus quotes it. We know that that is the trace. But the point is, so Copernicus did something. We can even give credit to Greek. But after that, this is fascinating. Kepler came and said the orbits are not circular, and actually that made a revolution. But what if I tell you, now I don't know if that went from India to Europe, possibly not. Kepler did his original work, and he should be given the credit. But Indian astronomy has elliptical orbits going back to Mahabharata time, 7,500 years. It has knowledge of elliptical orbits of the planets going back to Ramayana times to 12,000 BC.
Oh,
and these are peer-reviewed published papers, and nobody is disputing those findings. So, did they know that actual why they are going in the elliptical? Possibly not. We don't know that. But they knew that they were going in the elliptical, and that gives you a better model. One more thing I'll quickly mention. The fact, before Newton, you will not see anybody writing formulas in the West. You can go and try to trace it.
Okay.
Mostly they were geometric methods or a very crude methods. They understood like a bigger weight, meaning it will hit you harder. But actually the formula can be written F equal to ma type of thing that Newton did. That intuition is also there in the Surya Siddhanta, for example. And how did it go there? There is a trace that you can do. The Jesuit scholars that came to Kerala.
Okay.
And from Kerala, so Islamic invasions had destroyed a lot of knowledge centers in the north, but not so many in the south. So Kerala, when we say Kerala astronomy or Kerala mathematics, it's not Kerala mathematics, it's Indian mathematics.
Correct.
But because they got it from Kerala, they call it Kerala mathematics. So through with the Jesuit scholars, it went there, and Newton came across it. Therefore, Newton had the confidence to write it. Just to give a simple example, the first chapter of Surya Siddhanta is a Madhyamadikar, meaning how to find the average position of a planet. The second chapter is Spashtadikar, meaning how to now find the precise, meaning how to fine tune that position. Think of a vernier caliper. That logic is there, and the whole chapters are written, and they are not mincing words, they are not wasting time. Surya Siddhanta starts with how to find the average position of the planet, and that is what these guys are struggling for so many years.
Oh.
And the Surya Siddhanta model, even the actual results, were most accurate until last 100-150 years. Only in the last 100 years, modern astronomy has gone beyond. I'm very, very accurate now. And Surya Siddhanta may not have gone because it may not be needed. They were using for agriculture, they were using for astrology, they were using for navigation.
Interesting. So, what is the objective, according to you, of modern science and how it has evolved?
Very good question. Modern science, even now, I mean, the sincere folks who want to follow the discipline, and even when it started, was to find the truth. In that sense, in an Indian context, you can see them coming together. So, Adhyatma or Vijnan, you can say. I mean, my definition, my good friend Phadkeji, I mean, he describes like this: Adhyatma is equal to refined science. And science is equal to refined Adhyatma. And frankly, I will tell you that is my experience of 35 years. Just without going the details, when I started with the Mahabharata study. So Mahabharata, in the Indian context, people will take it as Adhyatma. Like Bhagavad Gita is there, many Bhagavad Gitas are there. But when I found one shlok, so that is there as a Shabda Praman, but it's not been validated. Now, using modern science, I validated it. So that is like taking an Adhyatma point, that Arundhati went ahead of Vasishta, and nobody will care. Okay, if it's going ahead, let it go ahead. If Vyasa says it, yeah, I will do Namaskar. Not beyond that. But you using modern science, now you say, actually there is a time, it's a physical thing that happened, empirical, and now that helps us understand Mahabharata better. So they are like two wings, they are refining each other. And that happened in Indian context. Now in American or Western context, it is happening because the theoretical physics, now they have gone beyond to this quantum mechanics area. Now they are finding very tough. And now they, not just now, even going back 100 years, like Schrodinger and Bohr. So they were looking at Vedanta, they were looking at Upanishad, and it's a darn serious thing. People here will think what the Vedanta has to do with the quantum mechanics. But answer is everything. Schrodinger says everything.
Does science has any limitations, according to you?
Definitely. As scientists generally know it, like a great philosopher of science know it, ordinary scientist doesn't know it. For example, ordinary scientist has, ordinary meaning, if you go back 100 years, 200 years, even the great scientists like Euler and Laplace, they also had that confidence now after Newton, that now all they needed to do is like make few more detailed measurements and we will know everything about the world. And then the Planck came and quantum mechanics and it went in different direction. But the limitations are there. I think people do understand it. I will make a distinction. See, science has some biases, dogmatic biases, which is to say, to modern science, most of it anyways, these things like mind or intellect or buddhi or whatever you want to say, these are vague terms. They consider them as an emergent property. When a complex system comes together, like as a human body or something, these things emerge. Now, the Indian view is not like these things emerge. In fact, Indian view is upside down. A question to be asked is, does cat behave like a cat? Why? And because it has a cat's body or it has cat's consciousness.
Okay.
And the Indian model says it has got a cat's body because it had a cat's consciousness. Human being has got a human body because it has a human consciousness. And this is very tough for modern science to still assimilate. But many things like in neuroscience, like John Eccles, Nobel laureate, they are, I mean, he passed away now, but it is forcing them to come here. Quantum mechanics is forcing them to come here. Some of the healthcare issues are forcing them to come to this. Because say Ayurveda doesn't treat the body. Ayurveda, Sharira, Mana, Buddhi, that is the model.
Right.
So you have to even treat the Mana, treat the Buddhi. They even consider the consciousness of a Vaidya who treats it. That matters. Huh?
Interesting. So what foundation you think of Indian knowledge system which are basically contributed to this modern science? And
yeah, let's look at two things. So you asked me about the limitation. That is the complex word would be epistemology, which is to say in a simple language, what are the limits of our knowledge? And if you go to Sankhya Darshan, India's sixth Darshana, so Sankhya Darshana, Sankhya Karika has a beautiful description, which is to say first, even before analyzing anything, understand you have this limitation. And I will not say the whole shlok, but ati durat, ati sukshmat, something that is too far you cannot see it, something that is too close you cannot see it. If your mind is imbalanced, you will not able to comprehend it, and it goes through 6-7 different things. So it says these are your limitations, be aware of them. And therefore, how do we fix them? By telescope or a microscope, right? But still their limitations would be there. So this is one like epistemology, that no matter what you do, ultimately there will be many things that will be unknown, and that is not a problem. See, this is how optimistic the Darshana Shastras are. So you will not know. For example, in the modern language, Sir Karl Poppers, he says, while we differ in little bits of what we know, when it comes to ultimate ignorance, we are all equal. So what is the unknown out there will be there. So this is the contribution in science is understanding, but until now science thinks we can still figure out everything. Even in the, as a mind or Atma or soul, as an emergent property, we will, consciousness, we will figure it out. And now they are struggling with that. So I think the Indian science can give contribution to that. Say, for example, Darshana Shastra, like say Nyaya, has no problem whether they are studying human body or whether they are studying human mind. Method exactly remains the same. He says, okay, what's your hypothesis? What is the problem you're trying to solve? Like some people behave idiotically. Okay, what is your proposal? And they just go through the exactly same method. And now you will see psychology and everyone is using the same methods now, more and more.
So you mentioned about psychology. That reminded me about, I think, Freud. That's what typically people say as one of the founder related to psychology. And he says that up to 7 years growth of the child, which is more important and which has got long lasting impression for every individual. So does any Indian psychologist, or probably I would say Indian philosopher, psychologist in ancient era has come across this kind of a thing?
Very much so. See, take Bhartuhari or Bhartuhari. I mean, I don't know exact shlok, but I mean, I know translation. Like up to when the child is up to 5-year-old, you can pamper. It says, for example. So it has done the synthesis and given this. Then 5 to 15 or something. Now you have to discipline it. 5 to 16. And then you would have heard that, na, when the kid becomes a 16-year-old, the parents have to treat them as a friend. Now that has a, when Bhartuhari goes about it, many other people go up that, further that. Now we make a mistake. We treat them as a friend, but still keep them dependent. So they are still dependent on us. Say, hey, when you treat them as a friend, which means they are also now no longer dependent on you. That factor is lost, but that was known to them. And then they say what you do. Or say if you take our Varna Vyavastha, which is to say whatever you like, there is a path. Don't we say like, oh, you like mechanical thing, go mechanical engineering. So there was this path. And in the ashram also, ashrama Vyavastha like brahmachari, grostha is also so scientific. Now that I have turned 50, I can kind of relate to that. Like certain things like as operations, like as a mainstream contributor. Now you say, I don't want to do that. I don't want to run a business. Maybe I want to guide a business. So I think the changes in our lifetime, they were also incorporated. Now this is all psychology.
So interesting. I think all those domains what we are basically compartmentalizing are actually same, and probably that's where I think we are making mistake by compartmentalizing the things.
Very good. Let me just take that point and elaborate little bit digression, but maybe not a digression, maybe the main subject. See, for example, how to behave with people. This is one aspect. So like you say compartmentalizing, the solution is exactly the same. So when we go around, we meet different types of people. How to deal with them. Take that as the one subject. Another one is in a statecraft, meaning Rajakaran. Like how there are different people's different interests. How do we deal with them? Like a Chanakya Niti,
right?
You will say. Another one just for personal. Forget about behaving with people, but how can I keep my composure in a good mood, no matter how people behave with me? I'm just taking these three. Let me add one more. Or somebody who is pursuing a path of, say, moksha, whatever. So what things he should identify, how he or she should behave, or how he should or she should judge what is the progress. All of these 4-5 things I said, there is a one common formula. For example, Chanakya says Sama Dama Dandaved.
Right.
Now come to Patanjali. Patanjali says if you want to keep your composure pleasant, it says Maitri Again, Sama 4. Maitri, Karuna, Mudito, Upekshanam. 4 things. Sukha, Dukha, Punya, Apunya, Vishayanam. Bhavana, Chitta, Prasadanam. If you want to keep your mind pleasant, divide all these interaction into 4 categories. Somebody who gives you sukha, somebody who gives you dukkha, somebody does punya, meaning good things, simplified. Apunya means bad things.
Right.
How do you deal with them? Maitri, karuna, mudito, meaning you become happy with that person, the person who is doing good things. And mudito upekshanam, the person who is doing bad things, you simply ignore that person. And then you come to like say Bhagavad Puran and Bhakti. How is the Madhyama Bhakta? You know, Madhyam Bhakta distinguishes.
Right.
So he says, Ishware tad adhineshu bali sheshu dvishatsucha prema maitri krupo peksha. Exactly that same 4 formula. So if you are dealing with a god, do prem. Bhakta of a god, do maitri. Bali sheshu, somebody who has an immature mind. Okay, do the compassion, show the compassion. And somebody who treat you in an envious fashion, upeksha. So various context, exactly same formula, same solution.
Interesting phenomena. Means I have never thought of that. All those things are, I would say, parallel and reaching to the same point.
And where are they coming from? Patanjali's Yoga Sutra.
Yeah.
Chanakya Niti, Arthashastra, right? And then Bhagavad Puran, Bhakti.
So all are converging at one place, I would say, in a way. Do you have any examples of Indian discoveries which probably reinstated or probably claimed by Westerners as their own?
Let's take 3. Let's take medicine. So we will cover that as a different object. One talk I gave is like ancient Indian medical sciences, prevention, cure, and patient management, 3 case studies. So let's take that. Let me ask you, suppose you hear the word vaccination. Which scientist, naturally the Western scientist, whose scientist name comes to your mind? Vaccination.
Louis Pasteur.
Louis Pasteur. Who else? One more. Louis Pasteur started with the germs.
Yeah, probably that's what.
Edward Jenner.
Edward Jenner, right.
Who like did experiments with the cow and vaccination, right? What if I tell you, even before Edward Jenner was born, there was a extremely sophisticated and close to 100% successful method of vaccination. That time they call it invariolation. Indians didn't call it invariolation. Westerners, I mean Western Europeans gave the name invariolation. A vaccination because of a cow, waka, baka, that's a cow. So they used to make a cut, used to use the old smallpox medication. They use for everything else. Medication meaning the culture. From the pus, collected from the pus. And Indians had a method, like that they will take a cotton thread, dabble it into that old culture, somebody who had a smallpox, and then protect it. And they know exactly 4 years again is the epidemic is going to come. And before that they will just they do the weather patterns and they will go village to village and they tika. They call it tika, and they used to do it. Now this was practiced all over India. Britishers were ruling in Kolkata, so they noticed it there, like Banaras Brahmins coming there and doing this thing. They wrote papers to Royal Society of London. These papers are written before even Edward Jenner was born. Before even Edward Jenner became a doctor, there was an extremely detailed report written by John Howell, again a medical man here. And that goes, and he even says that thanks to the methods of Banaras Brahmins and Vrindavan Brahmins, because they must be going to Kolkata, our folks, meaning the British folks living in Kolkata, none of them died because of smallpox. So it's a 100% success rate even he is vouching for. And he's saying at least this method existed in India from 15th century and that is just his guesswork. You will hear those words, Shita Putana. Shitala Devi is connected with smallpox. In Mahabharata, 7,500 years ago, she is referred to as a Shita Putana. Now, Putana and Krishna story will give you a different context. That Putana, now we made a big demoness, none of this thing really. It is told as a metaphor. But Putana is, Pu is like a pus and Tana is like a skin. So these are all these Kanjania, whatever we call, smallpox, chickenpox. These are these diseases. Quickly, the middle one. Rhinoplasty. The plastic surgery. Actually, everybody must be trying around the world. But it became a revolution. In fact, the Royal Society of Surgery in England was formed 100 years after Indian method, they call it Indian flap method, went to UK. 2 British medical men saw a potter, Kumbar, performing a operation, nose operation, and putting an artificial nose and putting a skin on top of it on the streets of Pune, 1794.
Oh.
They wrote about it. Then it becomes such a great news in UK.
Okay.
And then Europe. In fact, the word plastic, do you know how it became? When the Indian flap method that was translated from English to German, the guy who translated, he called it plastic. We know plastic. Like plastic is like a shaping form. So that's how the plastic surgery name came. And it was known. But afterwards, they removed that name. So this is how it has gone, the surgery, the science of surgery. Sushruta has 300 instruments. So it's not like the technology is not there. Quickly, the last one. Patient management. Like Kumbhakarna story, we think of this must be exaggeration. Who sleeps for 6 months?
6 months, yeah.
But actually, there is a disease. Actually, I have a case study going for 1 year. In fact, I waited until I would publish about Kumbhakarna until I found somebody who is sleeping longer than Kumbhakarna. Finally, I found that in 2015.
Okay.
So Kumbhakarna's condition, modern day we call it Klein-Levin syndrome, KLS.
Okay.
So when I found that KLS, I was doing some sleep study that I was telling you.
Yeah.
And so I said, there was a case study of a 14-year-old. And I said, I have heard some similar story and I couldn't think of. Then it came, Kumbhakarna. Very similar to that. This case study was of a 14-year-old. So I went back to Valmiki Ramayana. Literally, I made a list of all the symptoms of KLS and said, are there descriptions of that in Kumbhakarna? I mean, about Kumbhakarna in Ramayana. Yeah. Practically 100% of them are there. So now, just quickly summarizing. So yes, it's a KLS. Now today, if you ask the doctors, what is the treatment for KLS? They said, we don't know why it happens. They are trying some different things. But all it is a patient management. And what is that treatment? Give them a nice, secluded, comfortable, air-conditioned place to sleep. When they get up, be ready with the food, because hyperphagia is one aspect of it. Hypersomnia is what they are doing. There are other very serious issues that many people may not know, is a hypersexuality that is connected with KLS. That is what needs to be treated here. I mean, those KLS people don't even recognize their relatives and they behave very weirdo. Now you have these descriptions of Kumbhakarna. Like Kumbhakarna stealing the wives of the rishis from the ashramas. And otherwise, he is a very amazing, great person when that episode is not there. And the treatment that Ravana offered to Kumbhakarna, and actually you can read that, and I have written some papers and whatnot, it 1:1 matches with what doctors recommend to a KLS patient today.
Interesting. So, by looking at our own history and probably when we have learned the science and all, we learn more about Newton, Einstein, and maybe some, I would say, Western researchers or philosophers more. Not much more about Aryabhatta, Sushrut, or maybe Kera School of Mathematics and so on. Why is it so, and how we can probably make it happen that people will also know about our own history in the future?
Correct. So your question was, who are the Indian scientists? Do our folks know it? 3 reasons why there is an ignorance on this front. First thing I was telling, the education, like person getting educated in India in the ancient times, it was not for the sustenance. Because sustenance actually came from the Varnashrama system. Like the father, whatever the father was doing or mother was doing, that was taught to the children. And frankly, by the time they were 12, 13, 14, they were experts. So they could sustain. That was never an issue. So why did people study at that time? So they studied for a lokahita, for samaj hita, I mean for doing something bigger. So that is the first difference. Because they were motivated by this samaj seva aspect, many were hesitant, and actually genetically we still see that in ours. Like, to tell ourselves like what I have done, people are very hesitant and they underplay. Whereas you'll find in America, the person is, will give the whole resume like how he's practically like a CEO. Although, so that's a mental psychological difference. Other thing is not so much in the Islamic times, because what happened, offensive Islam, basically they destroyed the thing and they extracted the revenue. They didn't invest in technology, but they were not so much into taking away the credit. See, Islamic many times have no problem saying this we got it from India. We translated it from India. But with the British times, what happened, and this is why we don't even think there can be an Indian scientist. What British realized when they studied the Indian history, the recent medieval history, they said there were Islamic rulers, Muslim rulers, But basically still Hindus were ruling it. Even their ministers were Hindus and so on, you know, and they were converting, and that's fine. But still Hindus were ruling it. Now 1857, when British finally had a total control of India, what they realized is as a physical body, they have tamed Indians. But does an Indian mind thinks that these British are superior to them? And the British realize, hell no. The Indian mind is not thinking them superior. They think power as a power with the guns they have control. They said, that's not very good situation. We will not able to sustain our control. So what we need to do, and this is where they Macaulay education, we call this. But the main thing they basically did, which is what I say as a George Orwell says, if you want somebody to be your eternal slave, basically destroy their understanding of their history. And so history as a general word, but with that came science, with that came technology, with that came philosophy, with that came philosophers. So they almost turned these Valmiki and Vyasa as a mythical personalities. What they wrote became also a mythology. And Nyaya Darshana, they called it philosophy. It's not a philosophy. In Bhagavad Gita, if you read, Adhyatma Jnana Nityatvam Tattva Jnanartha Darshanam. These are all different words. Tattva Jnanartha Darshanam. Tattva Jnana is a philosophy, close. Darshana is literally how to comprehend, how to perceive, how to utilize.
Right.
Which is a very practical way of doing it. And so they turned it into philosophy. We called it philosophy. So do you know what happened? Philosophy is like you philosophize and just stop. So our folks also right now, there are great Nyayikas. Like, you know, for example, right here, Professor V.N. Jha, now he's very old, but he's a Nyayika, you know, at the Pune University. He was there. The problem is, they think I'm a philosopher. I don't mean V.N. Jha. I mean, he's my guru and we have a good relationship. But they teach that, but they never thought of using Nyaya Darshana for practical purposes. Tasya bhumishu viniyoga. You have to make use of this to make human life better. They never thought of it because somebody told us it's a philosophy. No, it's a technology. It tells you how to use it. And then the next one is they also said, you guys are dumb. You cannot do anything original. British convinced us of that. In fact, in 9th grade, I remember there was one Indian scientist and he had done something in optics. And my teacher in 9th grade told me that name, me meaning to the class. And I'm telling you, I still have this memory. This is 1983 or so. The whole day I am thinking like the name was Indian, but also some Marathi name, like a Deshpande, Marathi, something like this. And I'm saying Deshpande and a scientist, what the hell is happening here? Meaning this is how brainwashed all of us are. Like how can Deshpande be a scientist? At least thinking like this. So we have to basically make people aware of it. How come somebody from India goes there and becomes a scientist in the West? Because there is all that thing, Purak thing is given. Whereas here we are using the terms like scientific temperament. But even I will tell you, all our very famous scientific institutes, like even the TIFR, but Indian Institute of Sciences, IITs, not to say there are always exceptions, but as a mainstream, and I talk to these professors and they agree with me privately, we have turned this into a mediocrity. I mean, the mediocrity is what is celebrated. Somebody tries to go out of the way, people will try to see how they can pull the legs or the bureaucracy. And we are trying to break these things. It is happening, but it's still a trickle. Considering the amount of money that goes into R&D versus what's coming out, there is a big gap
you can
right
see.
now.
So you mean to say that core research is still a challenge, or probably previously, or probably in ancient India, there was a core research, I would say, or probably fundamental research, typically what we say. And
I would say both. See, what happens is the Indian intellect is not an issue. This is my simplistic analysis. I'm not saying I understand all the aspects, but Indian confidence is an issue. Then another thing is they always think somebody else has the answer. Say, for example, like the yesterday, like somebody wants to do something in aromatherapy. Like what was the original Indian science of aromatherapy? That person wrote to me and he said Gandharva Veda, and I don't know. I said, do you mean the Gandha Veda? I asked him for Gandharva Veda. He said, no, Gandharva Veda has something. My point is, he wants to start the subject. I'm not an expert in it. He immediately thinks, because I'm doing something in Itihas, he has to start with me and get the original material. What our folks don't realize is that the very act of searching for the sources gives you the knowledge. That knowledge you will never gain if you think I'm going to ask someone and ask something already on a platter. That is the Indian problem. The confidence is another problem, that, hey, can I do it? I don't know, so let me just go ask. And it's like a loser's football team. passing the ball to
to
the
others,
other guy
yeah.
as fast as you can. So, but as far as the intellect goes, as far as the talent goes, I don't see as a problem. In fact, India is amazing.
Full of it.
Because the same folks goes to America and create magic.
True.
We can create it here.
Okay. Which Indian innovator, ancient innovator, you think has done a great job, and you would say that is what motivated to a motivated thing for new researchers or innovators?
Again, a great question. Do you have any specific discipline in mind?
No
Okay,
discipline, I think.
So medicine is an amazing one. Let me say, for example, without going into the details, materia medica is what is taught to MBBS students. Do you know what is the origin of materia medica? It is Ayurveda.
Okay.
If you go to the Wellcome Group, which is Wellcome is a pharmaceutical company, we know that,
Yeah.
British company. That British guy, created a proposal, and that time he gave some extremely handsome payment. I don't know the number, but £5,000, which is like a huge.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
royalties
that
used to
time.
have it, and he said, "You go to India, to that fellow, and scour everything, all the Vaidyas, all the Indian medicine men, get everything from them, extract it, write down," and he has documented that. Until you do it, don't come back. And he, I think, roamed around in India for 11 years, documenting all the plants, all the leaves, what is their use, how to grow them, in what diseases it's used.
Mm-hmm.
So Indian materia medica, if you look at the Wagbhat or Charaka, was literally, this is the disease, which area of the India you are, and here is the medicine. Now they of course simplified and turned that into which prescription medicine,
Right.
but it was there. So we don't even know the names of them. Now think of astronomy, for example. Again, you said what names? I don't know the names. Surya Siddhanta has it. Mayasura has compiled it. We don't know who. But predicting the position of the sun is called equation of the sun. That equation, just to give you a comparison, because there is another foolishness that is taught to us, that in Indian astronomy came from Greek. There cannot be more nonsensical thing that can be taught. Whoever is teaching it, it's extremely nonsensical. I'll tell you the equation of the sun, how to predict the position of the sun. The model in Surya Siddhanta, if used today, even today, the Indian prediction is twice more accurate than Greek. Okay, if you use the same equation, in Indian equation versus Greek equation, you go back to Greek times, 2500 years ago. Even then, Indian equation of sun is twice more accurate than the Greeks. But then the magic happens next. Now, this is Anil Narayanan, Dr. Anil Narayanan, my good friend, ISRO scientist, aeronautical engineer, now in America, doing consulting. Now he said, let me find out when this equation was the most accurate. When he went backwards calculating it, the time comes to Mahabharata times, 5500 BC, 7500 years ago. That's when it was the most accurate, which means it was calibrated then. Now, we don't know the name of that scientist who did it. And you can find this in practically every field. Music getting connected with some of the other thing. Chemistry, Rasa Shastra.
Yeah.
So P.C. Ray, 1926, I mean, the Hindu chemistry, what he wrote, it's still worth. I mean, the Gen Z should read Hindu chemistry. And they should keep in mind, because now what happens is, we tend to think Western chemistry is sophisticated. Well, it is. But if you do the time comparison, you'll be amazed. Even the 1926 P.C. Ray Hindu chemistry is more sophisticated than Western chemistry that existed in 1926. But not many people know about it.
In ancient India, we used to have universities like Nalanda, Takshashila, that sort. And there were some good practices they might be following at that time. Probably, do you think some practices what they were following at that time should be adopted by Indian universities or colleges today, because they are probably relevant today as well?
Well, good question. I'm saying for a different reason now, because very little has survived from Nalanda and Takshashila as to, so we really don't know what they were doing. But I will tell you, if you go to Rigveda, we have a Rigvedic pedagogy. Now we are talking of NEP, New Education Policy and all. And some good stuff is coming. I mean, I went to few places. I was in Gujarat, Garbha Sanskaran Kendra, where like they will literally work on the mother, like what you call prospective mothers, long before even they are going to get pregnant. And it's just, I mean, sanskar at all level, like Sharira, Mana, Buddhi, just extremely fascinating. Feels like a ashram-like environment like here. And what is that science? They are not inventing new things. like Indumati Kaddare is like behind that whole thing.
Yeah.
They are taking it from all our text. So, I mean, the knowledge is there, but just like what she has done and their team is doing, we have to do it. And that we'll find in everything. Besides, it's not, we don't have a problem of like us versus them. Like, so there are amazing things happening in the Western science and technology for a long time, and we should incorporate them. So now astronomy has gone, the modern astronomy has gone ahead of Indian astronomy. So we shouldn't feel inferior about it. We should say thank you.
Thank you.
What
Correct.
a fascinating thing you guys are doing.
Okay, now we would like to explore probably India's ancient traditions, as I was talking about Takshashila, Nalanda or something. But we do have some new terminologies for Indian youth today, like startups or entrepreneurship, as I am associated with startups more and mentoring them. Were there something similar in ancient India as well, like startups or entrepreneurship?
No, again, good question. I don't know the exact answer, but what I will tell you is innovation was encouraged.
Okay.
And it was never like seen down, because now actually we see in India, like somebody tries, now meaning I'm taking last 150 years or my experience as a young one. You try to do something new. Like I was telling the story, we wanted to put a load cell.
Right.
And the professor will say the old method, put the weights.
Use that.
Right? This can be easy. But the rhinoplasty example that I gave you, this is a good example. See, Sushruta, if you go to Sushruta Samhita, by the way, I have shown that the Sushruta's timing, if you go to Wikipedia and the mainstream nonsense, is basically talks of 600 BCE. It utterly illogical, idiotic, nonsensical dating. The person who did the dating was a great guy. I have a great respect, Mr. Hurnley. But the method he used is the utterly idiotic Indology method. Okay, therefore he came to 600 BC. If today I would explain, he is no longer. But if I explain to him, he will agree and say, thank you very much. What I have shown, we don't know the exact timing of Sushruta, but he is definitely more than 8,000 years old and not 2,500. The point I'm mentioning is, in Sushruta Samhita, this nose operation is given. In the Shardula Vikridit Vrutta.
Okay.
How to do it, how to take the skin. Now what he says is to put a wax mold here and cut a skin from the chicks and put it here. Now the reason I'm saying is, so that's what Sushruta says, possibly 4,000, 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 years, whenever that was there or modified. Fast forward to 1794, when a potter is performing that same operation on the streets of Pune. Do you know what he does? And that became very famous as an Indian method. They should have given that guy's name, then he would have been a scientist considered. Instead of taking from the cheek, this guy took that exact shape from the nose, from the head. And then flipped it and not completely disconnecting. And Sushruta also says don't disconnect completely, keep the skin living. And therefore it was a very nice, smooth job. But here it is also good. And you know why this is useful? Because it's a naturally gravity, whereas this one is pulling it like this. And my point is, he just did it. He didn't make a big fuss of it. So there was an innovation, there was an improvisation. As to how it was documented, I don't know the answer.
Okay.
But mostly because we had a Guru Shishya Parampara, it kind of continued like this. The father would show, or the Guru would show how to do it. In music, what do we have? Everything that is there in the music, we cannot really document. I mean, how do you document Kirana style versus a Gwalior style? But it is there, there is a distinction.
Right. So we do have some competitions like hackathons and all today, where, as we say about innovation, people are trying to find out innovative solutions for the given problem. Something like that was there in ancient India, or any references we have related to some competitions, all India level, or
no competition. Like, I mean, I don't know competitions. I don't know, but Guru telling the Shishya, like we have the terms Guru Shishya Parajayat, Parajayat, you know, like Guru is happy when Shishya goes ahead of the Guru. That philosophy you see, that we see here, that we also see in Greece, which is also very good. For example, Thales. This is 600 BC or so, and Thales, and then Anaximander and Xenophanes, and there is this whole tradition. And Thales is one in the Greek tradition, and you see this in Indian tradition all the time. These gurus were not feeling threatened when their students are performing a better job. Like, you know, Vyasa and Shuka Goswami. So Shuka has already gone ahead of Vyasa. Just as a side lighter story, you know the story, right? Shuka Goswami walks and then Vyasa walks, and then there are a group of ladies taking bath in the lake. When Shuka Goswami goes, they don't even flinch. They said he's a Ajanma Brahmachari. He doesn't see a distinction in the gender or anything. And then Vyasa goes, they suddenly huddle behind the trees. Right? I mean, think of it. So Shuka has gone ahead. And Vyasa is not, Vyasa is basically praising it. This is maybe on the Adhyatma path or something. But you see that into the science and technology, the anticipation was that you take it to the next level. Competitions, I don't know. And therefore, you see improvisation in everything, even in philosophy. So what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did, Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami did it, and Jiva Goswami, their nephew, goes further. And it is in their same lifetime.
So you mean to say at that time it was pride for the Guru when Shishya goes ahead of him?
Yes.
So the knowledge was not protected and it was basically kind of open source in today's world.
It was open source. I mean, the concept of patenting was not there.
Yeah, that's what I actually coming to. Patenting and all what we are having today.
Yeah. But because the circumstances have changed and we have to change to those circumstances. For example, what is the definition of a Sanatana? Sanatana Yaskacharya says, Sanatano Nitya Nutana. It is the one that is not only willing but excited and encourages to change with the changing times. So, Dr. Mashelkar and all that, the whole turmeric patent, that issue, or the rice basmati and all that. So, we have to definitely,
get it.
With the changing circumstances, we have to do that. And I don't know, you might actually know Dr. Unnat Pandit. He's a good friend of mine. So he's now taking that lead, trying to, bring the awareness. So if people do some fancy things, in the villages, people are making innovations. I mean, you're working with the innovation cell and all that. But if they are not aware of that, they have to make the patent. It can be easily stolen, and then suddenly US patent number.
Probably that. If would have been there at ancient times, means if this theory of patenting and all, probably then those discoveries or innovations what they have done probably might be in their name instead of probably.
True, but you cannot just blame Indians for that thinking. Frankly, even as recent as 18th century, early 18th century, Ben Franklin made so many inventions, innovations, very, very useful one. And he said he knew he could patent it, but he chose not to patent it. And he said, because society gave me the infrastructure within which I could do it, and therefore they must be used for the well-being of a society. So if he's making glasses for lights and he can make money out of it, that was fine. But he didn't like the idea of taking a royalty. Your thoughts, please.
So on similar grounds, when we talk about ancient India and probably the researchers at that time, do you think that they might be thinking that whatever we are discovering or whatever we are coming up with, like we took an example of medicines and all those things, maybe it is for the society, why we should patent it and make money out of it? Another thing could be when you have made this as open source knowledge, maybe someone can build on top of it and probably come up with some better versions of it. So that might be the thought. That's the reason probably they might not have thought about the patenting and all which is there today.
Correct. No, I would agree with that. Even if you think of Indian patent law changes, like 1971 Patent Enactment Act, the process versus the product. And whereas the rest of the world will say, hey, even the product matters, like medicine and what. If you remember, India used to refuse to accept an outside patent law. They say if it is to do with a life-threatening type of medicine, or if it has to do with the hunger in the
food or something,
we will not accept that patent. So India had taken that positions and the other countries did not like it. So I think it came from that basic idea.
Okay. So related to knowledge theory or ontological thing, do you find anything you can think about related to Bhartiya knowledge system and how probably we can get some insights from it related to ontology or maybe?
Right. So think of from like ontology is like how do we know something is true? But even in between, a pragmatic approach. So think of a pragmatic approach. If you look at the nautical miles, go and find out like equator, what is the nautical miles of the earth? Because on the ocean, it's very difficult to have a reference point to see how much distance you have traveled. Now we have a different ways. Again, they are astronomy, by the way. But Indians figured out that on the ocean we have no reference, but in the sky we do. So they use astronomy. And what is interesting is they made it so practical. So I'm saying the approximation, sometimes even in the camera we know. Camera can give a very precise focus and a blurred vision, but you want sometime in between also, which can adjust, not too precise and not too blur. There is a method to madness. Same thing here. What they did, they took the equator and they divided the equator into 21,600 parts.
Okay.
Now this is some random number. It is not random. 360 degrees they took, multiplied by each degree 60 arc minutes. So that is gives you 21,600. And do you know what the Indian astronomers did? Again, these are scientists using for agriculture and navigation. They backward calculated the radius. So think of the circumference is equal to 21,600 arc minutes, and I'll tell you why arc minutes, equal to 2 times pi. Pi is approximately 3 times r, and they said r will be 3438, meaning pi value is known. So they backward calculated the celestial radius, and all our sign tables, like the Aryabhatta sign tables and Surya Siddhanta sign tables, Madhva's sign tables, they are all into this 3438. Now, do you know why 21,600? Because a person walking on the land, or person making a sky observation, or a captain of a ship going on the ocean, his natural eye resolution, naked eye resolution, is 1 arc minute. So he has maps on his table. He looks at the star position and certain time and whatnot. He doesn't have to make many mathematical calculation, because all the calculations on the ground, on the maps, are done with that 21,600. So if you go and find out in the Wikipedia who came up with nautical miles, you'll get the answer French. But the question is, where did French get it from? French were one of the first in Western Europe to understand Indian astronomy better. British actually did not understand it initially, or they did not want to understand. And they thought, what these slaves are going to teach us. French did not have that problem. So 21,600 is an Indian innovation. And it's a pragmatic. And so in that case, people will say, but what is the accurate value of pi? Like my daughter used to come from school and says, Daddy, to how many digits you know the value of pi? I said 3.14.
3.1472, maybe go ahead a little bit.
Because in many cases, not going for a precise answer is a useful thing.
Correct.
Because for a practical reasons you can use it. So they were when it is required a precise answer, like Madhava of 14th century, long before this Newton and all of these, he has given in a very beautiful shlok and a formula, hey, you want a more precise value of pi? He has given to 11 decimal places in a shlok. So he said we can calculate it. But if Aryabhatta uses the pi value, he says if you do this, you get the pi value. But he says asanna, you get a approximate pi value. So they knew into the epistemological thing that all we can do is the best approximation to the truth. We will never practically reach the truth because it cannot be told in a language.
Coming back to today's AI and artificial intelligence and all those things which are coming up, can you think that probably the Nyaya theory or yoga theory in ancient India, can it help in artificial intelligence today?
It definitely does. I'll tell you on my practical experience with like what is that, Twitter. They have that Grok,
Twitter,
right?
Yeah.
Grok is the artificial intelligence thing. But as a story, we don't know how they did it. We don't know the technology. But think of Ramayana, when Maricha is taking the form of a golden deer. And what happens when Rama actually kills him, right? How does he shout? He shouts, Sita Lakshmana run, in the voice of a Rama. Now, don't we today train AI with the individual voice, and then now we give the script, and it has happened. My friend sent me, like he took my recordings, he trained the AI with my voice, then he wrote some text, and now I am saying it. And I said, when did I say that? So Maricha has figured out, I don't know how, I'm just funny as a comparison, I'm saying as AI, that it can happen, like, that was there. But on a very serious note, even I don't know why AI does that today. But I'll give you a specific example. There are 3 catastrophic rise events, and they perfectly align with the Krishna's Dwarka, Ravana's Lanka going underwater, and Plato's Atlantis. This is Paul Blanchard 1995 paper. So sometime I was just testing what are the limitations of AI. Now I don't know why it does that. So I said, hey, please pull the paper. In the Grok, I said, James Shaw, Paul Blanchard 1995 paper, and show the evidence, because somebody was asking me the question, for Krishna's Dwarka. It said, well, I don't see any evidence for Krishna's Dwarka, for your date 5525. It, by the way, recognizes who is asking the question
Okay.
in even Twitter. And it gave me other two, like CRE1, Ravana's Lanka, and then Plato's Atlantis. He says there is nothing. And of course, I know it is there, right? Because I'm saying the paper. So jokingly, of course, with a groke, I said, why the hell you did not talk about CRE3? And then it comes back and says, my sincere apologies. You are right. There is a CRE3 and that perfectly aligns with Krishna's Dwarka. The reason I tell you this story is our Gen Z or any generations, they must use AI. It's a fascinating tool, but they cannot use it blindly. Still, the human consciousness is actually above AI. Well, the AI says it's artificial intelligence, right? So the real intelligence is still required.
Still human.
In fact, people may think many jobs will go away. Well, some jobs will change. But just like computers also came and people thought many jobs will go away, many new jobs came. Here, I'm already seeing it. How to use AI? I mean, what questions to ask to AI? That is also an intelligent job.
Correct.
If you don't know what to ask, you will not get the answers. And that may be actually a challenge to the folks because they just ask AI and blindly think what the AI knows. That's not at all true.
So that is typically being referred as a prompt engineering in today's world. And you can frame a question like you are like a 7-year boy and probably you wanted to learn about, say, quantum mechanics as an example. And it will basically give you the beautiful explanation of that.
Yes.
So probably it's good for learning few things, but as you said rightly that you should not be blindly believing in that.
It will take some just like computers did, right?
Right.
Instead of on a paper, it's just doing it. We don't have to multiple times copy it. Copy paste become easy. Similarly, writing some letters that we put a lot of energy and stuff for writing summary papers, abstract. I mean, it's a great tool. It's going to make things efficient. But if you think that's going to make innovations, it won't.
Right.
Or you cannot take it blindly. I mean, that is very obvious right now. So your innovation is going to happen right
over here only.
It is going to help you.
So we can use that as a tool, and probably that could be a good message for Gen Z, what we are having, and probably they are using most of the time ChatGPT, Google, and all those tools to basically develop something and present it.
Right. Now, except I would just add, like, don't necessarily say only Gen Z, as if like they have the problem.
No, that's not the case. It's very widespread, I would say.
Yeah.
And that's true. Means, as you said, it's widespread. You can see it being used by many people in offices as well nowadays. Now, coming back to the problems, what typically people are having, like I used to have some problem related to decision making, like in my 20s or 2025 somewhere. I used to have the problem of what I should do. So there were two possible decisions I need to make. So at that time, my elder brother helped me in that he asked me to read Gita Rahasya. Probably it is written by Balagangadhar Tilak, as you know. And at that time, I was a little bit hesitant to do that, but he forced me to read it. Okay. Then after that, there was one interesting phenomenon over there, like Bhutanche Hita. Okay, so
the word used by him.
Word used by him. So the decision which will lead to Bhutanche Hita is a better decision. So that led me to take a proper decision. Now in today's context where Gen Z is there and probably they might not be, most of them will not go and read Gita Rahasya or maybe
it's
Gita.
Heavy actually. It's heavy.
It's heavy, first thing. So what advice you can give to them? Because they are facing this kind of dilemmas every day, or everyone is facing in a way, but specific to Gen Z.
So who gave you the advice you said?
My elder brother.
Elder brother. No, actually that was a advice right on. I mean, Gita Rahasya, that's very specific. But Gita, I mean, before people used to come and ask me and say, Nileshji, I want to do research like you. And in my naivety, I should admit, I used to say, start with 2 books of Sir Karl Popper, Logic of Scientific Discovery, Conjectures and Repetitions. And then they never came to see me again because they tried and said, oh my God, I don't understand. Then I said, what mistake I'm making? Because the person who comes also have extremely naive ideas, just like I have a naive advice. I'm saying because you need that foundation. So your elder brother gave is what I gave today. I say if it's a Marathi crowd, I say start with Vinoba's Gitai. The advantage is you don't have to translate it. So, I don't know Sanskrit, that excuse goes away because you can easily understand it. But if not, take any Bhagavad Gita, start with the translation. And they say, oh, is this a correct translation? I said, don't stop with one translation. Go for 5, 6. You will figure out what is correct. Vinoba's talks on Gita. Because a character building, and people may think, oh boy, that's a heavy. No. But character building, there is a character that is required for doing innovation. There is a character that is required for doing science, and a character that is required for doing technology, which is a perseverance, tenacity. There is this famous educator, I'm not getting his name right now, a British guy, but lives in LA. He says, it's not required that to make an innovation, you have to be wrong. He says, however, unless you are willing to be wrong, you will never do anything original and innovative in life. Which means that failure is intrinsic to making some great things. And so, which means a character. That you have to learn from a character, that it has to be imbibed. Because these days, whether called Gen Z or even digitals or whoever, I mean, I see that in the workplace where people will come. I did some counseling, or I don't do counseling, where somebody said 26-year-old. I'm just picking one case I know. And she is not even Indian. I mean, she was of a Persian origin, but living in America. And so her parents said, would you talk to her? And so he's talking. And she says, okay, how's the job and blah. He says, yeah, but I don't feel fulfilling. And I say, why you don't feel fulfilling? He said, because I don't feel like I'm contributing to the world. Okay, I said, which job? So whatever she was doing. And she was into that role for 1 year. I said, look, it really takes 1-2 years to truly understand the job if it's a new, and possibly 7 years to truly understand the bigger picture to go through the whole cycle. You are working there for 6-8 months and you are thinking, how come I'm not solving the world problem? Which means they're looking for a success very fast. That tenacity is not there, or quick job progression or stuff like this. The best advice that I heard, and I found this useful, and I used to give. He says, hey, for my career progression, what should I do? And the advice was, your current job, do the best to your ability. In fact, do it in such a way that you almost eliminate that job when your job term is done. And then you have excelled, meaning you eliminated is not a bad thing. There should be not a replacement, you automate or whatnot. If you do this good, don't worry what's going to happen. Like you are just looking for one promotion, 10 promotions will come your way. And so you have to have that shraddha, because it doesn't happen once they say, oh, you told me the promotion will come.
True. You mentioned during the discussion about the failure part. So typically, when we talk about Indian parenting system, or probably today's world around us, in India at least, the failures are being looked at as a bad thing. Means if I fail in a particular exam, it is being looked as you are good for nothing kind of a thing. But whereas I believe that failure should be ideally celebrated, because failure is the first step for success, or probably you might go through different failures and then you will reach the final success.
I will just slightly modify. I would say the failure should be secretly celebrated.
Secretly celebrated.
What I mean is, see, that also can be a bad thing. For example, like some kid fails in something and you say, oh, nothing, let's celebrate. And the kid will say, oh, really?
That's a good thing, isn't it?
I will tell you, in 6th grade, the semester, the mid thing, I failed in English.
Okay.
Out of 100, I had 22 marks. Out of that, 12 are in the oral exam of 20. And out of 80, I got only 10. Now, I don't think anybody celebrated, and I don't think anybody should have celebrated
in that way.
But therefore, I'm saying, if that's why Bhagavad Gita is important. If it builds the character, like Bhagavad Gita talks, Artha Jidnyasu, Artharthi Jnanicha Bharatarshava. Everybody is not Jidnyasu. Everybody is not Jnani. That's why we had a dual degree program, the Vratta Snatak and Vidya Snatak.
Right.
So find what your liking is and try to go towards that. So then for me, I said, how do I fix it? So in fact, this is a very personal story, but then the 6th final exam, I got 51. Now that was totally my marks. The 22 were also mine. But the teachers were not willing to believe that I got 51 on my own. Yeah. Right? So I'm saying people must have the courage to live through this phase when people are not thinking highly of you.
True.
And then you get over, you learn the failures, you know how to deal with the failures, live with it. And then that is useful when you go high, and the bigger failures you can easily manage.
So you mean to say that samskar typically when you are a kid, or probably as you fail or probably do something wrong, and probably how your parents treat you, or probably how society treats you,
And,
helps you in shaping your own character. And
correct.
all.
And actually, when we blame the kids, actually we have to blame the parents. No, us. Now, I'm not
Us
saying
too.
it's an easy job for any
Right.
one of us, because the technology has made
Yeah.
it interesting. But back to the Bhartuari. So first 5 years do the pampering, but then 5 to 16 no pampering. A very strict discipline. But at 16 he or she is your friend. How beautiful is that?
Interesting.
But with that friendship there is a responsibility also, which America does.
America does.
At 18, like the parents will say, oh, I am feeling good. Next year she's turning 18 and yeah, she goes out. I am free.
They have to on their own, right? After
Whereas
that.
American, many times Indian kids of American origin in India, in America, or even people sending from here, see, they are financing the whole thing. I'm not saying anything problem with it, but it is a problem. Because American kids, when I went there, I saw, they were working, I had a fellowship, they were working harder, 10 times harder than me. They will do a job, they will quickly just buy a muffin, and in the class itself, they're doing their breakfast. Again, they go for a job, and we had a fellowship and we were kind of relaxing. So I'm guilty of that, So to change that, I started doing the paper route, started distributing paper, although I had a fellowship. I said, I need to learn that. And it is a very tough life. I left that paper job in 3 months. But you learn a lot.
Right.
And
right,
you
right.
start valuing the money.
So, coming back to today's problem and all, so which major issue you think probably society is facing, where IKS has got the roots, and probably which probably we are not explored to that in that sense?
Yeah. Again, I would say, going back to the sanskar aspect, which is to say why you are doing this. Like Ben Franklin said, I'm doing it for the society. When you take a bigger view of helping for a society, and people worry, but then what will happen to me? There again, Bhagavad Gita will help, and you have to have a Shraddha. Shraddhavan labate jnanam, And if you don't have that conviction, then nothing will happen. You have to trust gut instinct, because it has worked for many others, right? So what happens is, when you do it, Yogakshemam Vahamyam, Krishna says, if you are on the right path, I take care of you. Now this is hard to believe. That's why you need a Shraddha, because Shraddha is blind. Therefore, this Andhashraddha Nirmulan Samiti, that Andhashraddha is a stupid word. Shraddha is blind. Shraddha is Andha. What many people don't understand is that Ashraddha is also blind. Therefore, you need a Shraddha. And you go through this. For example, like I left a full-time job in 2013 to write a book. Now, people would have laughed at me, like a good career and why I'm doing this. I said, I have a money for 5 years. 5 years is a long time. I will write the books in 6 months. Let's see what happens after that. Then I did a consulting. At some point, I said, okay, that's consulting enough. Our Vaisheshika Sutra has a definition for a dharma. Yato abhyudaya, prosperity, nishreyasa, ultimate good. Yato abhyudaya, nishreyasa, siddhi, sadharma. So you have to become expert in understanding how to achieve prosperity, but also how to bring that simplicity or the other pleasures that don't come from prosperity, and to know when to stop. If I would have continued my corporate career, it's just, some CEO, more, this and that. But to do what? I'm busy 24 hours. I can tell you, I am more busier than when I was in a corporate world right now. I am earning practically zero and happiest in all phases of my life.
So you said about people are behind the money unnecessarily, means there has to be some limit, and probably you can stop over there.
What age? At certain time, the young generation, they have to go after money. Many people will come, and they actually, my nephew, he wrote from India to me, and they are thinking I'm just going around everywhere, places, giving lectures. So it must be a lot of very prosperous career. People must be doing this money and all. So he said, Kaka, how's the scope for history in America?
As a career, he is looking at.
Of course, yeah. And he's saying, oh, you're doing great, apparently. I wrote in a WhatsApp, I said, take science. Now, my point is, it doesn't have to be science, but go for a profession, because we are not there yet. Go for a profession. Indian knowledge system, we have to establish this. Go for a profession that will take care of your sustenance with a minimal of efforts. Reduce your requirements. Like my son asked me when we were coming last year, he said, Dad, what advice for me? He was 27 that time, now 28. Right? I said, earn as much as you can, spend as little as you can, make your life simple. I give you 20 years, so 37, 47. At 47, you should able to say whatever you want to say to your boss in a humorous way. I said it before hanging up the phone, not after hanging up. You should be so financially stable, and as a career, you should be that settled that you can make your.
So living. I think that is a good advice for the Gen Z today, because you should be settled as early as possible. And probably you mentioned something about sustainable or something, and today people are more fascinated about sustainability and all those things. Do you think that was part of our system in Indian knowledge system? Is it was, I would say, embedded? Sustainability is a part of it.
You said it. We did not need a sustainability as a separate thing.
Yeah.
Okay. So, for example, just like political parties come together and they agree on a minimum common program.
Correct.
I will say Varna and Ashram. See, we have given a bad name because we don't understand it. Even as simple as Manusmriti, we have given a bad name. I'm studying Manusmriti right now.
Okay.
One of the reason I think possibly Manusmriti has been given a bad name with the British and all brainwashing our folks is because it is such a damn useful text that they want to destroy our Shraddha into that book. So I have not read it before, so I'm reading it and I'm being very fascinated. But to your point, sustainability was not a separate cause. I said Varnashrama. Again, we have given a bad name for no reason. It is a system you see everywhere. And you know what is a common program? Bhagavad Puran talks about it. So Varna, all the 4 Varna, there is a minimum common program. It says Ahimsa, Satyam, Asteya, Akama, Krodha, Lobhata. And to your point, sustainability, Bhuta Priya Hite Hacha Dharmoyam Sarva Varnikaha. Bhuta Priya, meaning Bhuta not limited to human beings, to the entire cosmos.
Correct.
You have that affection. The tree you see, even cutting a flower, you are very gentle, whether it feels it or not and shouts back at you or not. And then if you go at ashrama, which is also important for people, like people in our age group or even beyond, and we are still thinking, okay, what business I start? I mean, no, let the new generation take over. So they say, Sarvashrama Prayuktoyam, Sarvashrama, Niyamah Kulanandana, Krishna is telling to Uddhava, Madbhava Sarva Bhuteshu, Mano Vak Kaya Sanyama. So there has to be a control over the Sharir, Mana and body and what you say and everything. This is a perfect advice. And everywhere you are trying to see that ultimate reality. Very minimum program.
It means Gen Z can take a lot from this, and probably I would like to cite few problems what they are facing today, and maybe let us see if IKS or Indian knowledge system can help to find or probably give some directions to solve those problems. Nowadays, we know that screen time is one of the major problems people are having. So probably the more screen time it is having health issues would be related to eyes or probably sleep patterns. So a lot many things are there. So there are, one side is health issues. Second side is due to social media and bombardment of that, probably inferiority complex, and lot many psychological issues are also coming up with that. So do you think that anything from Indian knowledge system we can ask them to do, or probably do something which probably help them to solve those issues? Because
them or all of us, because we have to learn, which is Vyashti Samashti. Like there is an individual. So Swabodha, it has to start with a Swabodh, not just for Gen Z, for all of us.
First,
then we can do it. Because see, in America also, see, I'm sure here also you may see it, where the parents would say, kids, okay, it's a Bhagavad Gita time, but they are watching a Netflix series. That's not going to happen.
Right.
So the Bhagavad Gita time, I'm just using Bhagavad Gita as again. It has to be a family time. So if the family gets into it, and you will find actually if you start at the right age, the kids thoroughly love it. Meaning my daughter is totally born there and everything. Now she forgot, by the way, because you know there was a gap in school and all. But Rama Raksha she knew perfectly by heart, and with the enthusiasm she used to say it. Then on her own, she felt like going and finding the translation of, because she was not understanding. The what is that? Amar Chitra Katha?
Amar Chitra Katha.
Before she turned 5.5, she had read all the 232 Amar Chitra Katha books.
Panchatantra and all?
No. Amar Chitra Katha, you know, this Anand Pai.
Anand Pai,
got it. So what, to the extent, when sometime like somebody will say, Nileshji, write an article on cow. So I'm writing and I'm looking for a story, and that name is not coming to me. I used to call, Arya, come down. Hey, what is that name of the king who used to go after the cow? And she says, yeah, give me a second. And then she doesn't know how to say the Indian names, right? So Dilip, right? She says, Dad, something like a dulip. I said, thank you very much. Now go back. So they remember it. They get very excited about it. When I brought her here, and Hirkani story she had read.
Hirkani, yeah.
And she was so disappointed. You won't imagine. She was 8-year-old when we went to Raigad. And that gondola was not working, or a very long wait. So we couldn't go up. And she was so fascinated. And that age, she was possibly thinking that maybe she will see Hirkani also. So the fact that she could not see the Hirkani Buru, she was disappointed. My point is, if you get them at the right age, they get very fascinated, which means the parents have to invest in that way. But it comes back to those samskar. If those samskar don't happen in those ages, like humorously I say, people say, who are your fans? Like, who is like really looking after, I mean, excited about your research? And humorously, but there is a truth to it, I say those beautiful ladies, moms, whose kids are turning from young to teenagers, they are my fans, because suddenly they realize they are losing the control. Now the kids are, teenagers are not listening. But I'm saying that is a good transition if you treat them like a friend, actually, and you go with them. I mean, our house, we kept it very open. I'm not saying it's a perfect thing. Arya does give me the postmodernist wisdom once in a while, but we have to try.
Okay, so you mean this is all goes into samskar, or probably family culture, where probably you can embed some values, and probably that
so starts with you,
yeah,
and then yashti to samashti, to go to your family, and then think of the bigger ones,
Okay, are there any recent discoveries, coming back to again innovation and all, which are probably fascinating and probably help humankind in the future, which are not known to many people, kind of a thing?
I would say, I mean, just quickly, top of my mind, what is coming is not that it's not known, but it got a bad name, which is what we would have called ratta, remembering, and something like this. It is coming back now in this way that, or our pothi, take a pothi and we do the parayan. Or somebody will say, okay, I read a Gita now, why do you want me to read it again? And the answer is, you read it, you have not understood it. You have not got many, there are thousands of insights there that you have not understood. Not just you, I have not understood. Every time we read Bhagavad Gita, we get something new. And that is the reason parayan is the word we do. It is true for everything, even a science book. When you read the same science book multiple times, you get different insights. You think you understood, you have not understood. So that parayan, or the repetition, or even memorization is now coming back. People are saying, when you do the memorization, even in just say Bhagavad Gita or some shlok, that becomes useful to you in connecting the dots into whatever field you are working on. Maybe it is an office, maybe it's a supply chain, maybe it is education, maybe it's medicine.
I mean, practice makes man perfect, kind of a thing. So you go practice, kind of a thing. Considering now we are looking forward to youth, probably, which will be contributing more about progress of India. What advice you will give to the youth, considering that we want to become a developed country in coming years, and probably leading country?
Right. Well, I mean, advice is easy to give. What I would say is, many people right now still in the mindset, and I won't blame them. When we grew up, it was exactly like this. I went to UDCT, and people say, oh yeah, that's a good, go there. And the next thing they will say is, 4 years, definitely job is there for you. So there was this thinking of a job. But the reality now is, jobs are not going to be there. You have to create your own job.
Correct.
So entrepreneurial thinking right from the beginning, which fortunately, I don't know, America is also kind of getting in a bad phase, but that was there, like the young kids putting a lemonade stand kind of thing. So the entrepreneurial basic principles they learn at a young age. I was in sales, but my first job, when they asked me the sales job interview, so Nilesh, tell me about your past sales experience. I had none. I mean, not even sold a lemon. So I just had to turn like this, and I said, I have a zero experience. So I think people need to get into that entrepreneurial mindset. Maybe our educational syllabus need to change that. Even encourage them. If they get their degree bit late, fine. But maybe there is a co-op type of situation where they experiment with the business.
Try out something.
A vada pav stall, for all it matters. They will learn tons of things. And that they have to do, not look for the job. I think that's the advice I give, because that's the reality out there. Here, but also in other countries. Meaning, just because you get a good degree and now I go to America and do a jobs, they don't have a jobs either.
So you mean to say that they should be job creators than probably
Correct.
job seekers kind of a thing.
Correct. And,
So to
and
become the
a
entrepreneurs.
contributor to the
Contribute
growth,
to
new
the-
products,
True,
existing
yeah.
products, new service, whatever they do.
So startup is what you can think of as a future for the youth.
Correct. Correct.
So thank you for this entire episode and probably the knowledge what you have covered or probably tried to convey to this Gen Z. Let me thank you on behalf of Maharshi Karve Sri Shikshan Sanstha for coming over here and probably enlightening our youth about it. Thank you very much.
And thank you for
Thank
inviting
you.
me. It always feels like coming home or going to Mama's place. Thank you so much.
Thank you.